to have Marlee Matlin here. I'm very pleased to introduce her and have her come up here and tell us her story and tell us about some of the causes that she's committed to.
Thank you, Susan. And speaking of not everyone knowing who I am, it's true, there isn't. I don't know if any of you, well, I have to admit this, but I actually had a huge weakness when I have the time to watch a little television, because I have 4 kids, and it's difficult to watch. And I have one teenage girl who's 14, and she's a huge fan of The Bachelor, okay? You all know this show, The Bachelor. And it just so happened that on Dancing with the Stars, when I was there, I happened to meet what's his name, Jake. Oh, I actually met Vienna, who is the woman who grabbed Jake, or who Jake chose on this year's Bachelor, and she came up to me and she said, "Are you an actress?" And of course, clearly it proves that not everybody knows who I am. Anyway, I am so happy to be here today at the coolest place, the mecca of the internet world, Google, is this the sign? What's the sign for Google? This is the sign, Google headquarters. It's like that moment when Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father." And everyone gasped and said, "No way. I can't believe it's happening. It's the ultimate cool to be here today." And there's free food too. I mean, you guys have free Red Bull, you have free food. I can't believe it. It's really great. So, is there a resume that I need to give you if I want to apply for a job here? Maybe I could play pool all day. I don't know. Anyway, thank you. It's a fun place to be here, and it's fun, and thank you to have me here. But more importantly, being here with you, I can finally see some of the faces behind the news and the entertainment and the information that the world has come to rely upon. And now that I see you, I want to say thank you for all that you are doing. You are fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, I know that you're anxious to have me talk about my book, that book that is called I'll Scream Later. And some of you may wonder where that title came from. Well, I have to admit that if you didn't know already, I am a recovering drug addict, and today it's been 23 years, 2 months, and 20 days. And thank you. And just after I won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in Children of a Lesser God, I checked myself into rehab at the Betty Ford Clinic, unlike today, where my entire journey would have been covered by TMZ and Perez Hilton. Back then, way back then, there was no such thing as being able to, there was no such thing as those things, so I was able to check in secret. And while I was there, I was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. So if you can imagine, I must be the only person to get that "congratulations, you've been nominated" call while working on my sobriety at the Betty Ford Clinic. So anyway, when the phone call came in from Jack here, who, by the way, this is Jack Jason, my interpreter, if I didn't introduce him already. Sorry. I don't have a male voice. I just wanted to let you know that. Well, maybe after a couple of cigarettes. No, anyway, he asked me for a reaction or a statement, which wasn't going to be "staying sober." No, thank you for the nomination, but I'm staying sober. I'm keeping sober. No, I didn't want to say that. So instead, I said, "Tell them I'll scream later." And that phrase stuck with me ever since. And I think it strikes the right tone of humor and irony coming from this deaf gal, because as you'll see in my book, I may be deaf, but I'm probably one of the loudest people you'll ever meet. My good friend and mentor, Henry Winkler, put it perfectly when he told me, "If you will it, it is not a dream. For me, if you will it, it is not a dream. It's about intention. And for me, even though I was different than everyone else, I had the will and the desire to make something happen for myself. And everything else just followed. But times have changed. Though today I'm an actress and a film producer, as well as an advocate for children's and disability-related causes, and most recently a dancer on Dancing with the Stars. I hope you voted for me. Did you vote? Okay. I'm also a mother of 4, and as a result, I'm a cook, and a carpool driver, and a room mother, and a conflict mediator, and a closet organizer, and a pretend math whiz. Seriously, life is good. It's been 23 years since critics said that I won my Academy Award out of pity, and that I would never work in Hollywood again simply because I was deaf, and I'm still here. The barriers that many had predicted would stop my career dead in its tracks have virtually vanished. Thanks to many working actors like me who are deaf or differently abled, attitudes have changed. Now, most of the barriers I face are more humorous than they are distressing. And here are a couple of examples. Because once, when I was working on a television show with Mark Harmon called Reasonable Doubts, many of you are probably too young to even know this program was on the air. But anyway, once while working the program, an NBC executive came to visit the studio where we were shooting the show. And after watching me work for a little while, he said to the executive producer of the show, "You know, that Marlee Matlin is great. She's great. Is she going to be deaf for the whole show?" It's okay. I'm over it. And once, while I was ready to appear live on CNN, in front of millions of viewers, as you know CNN has, the director was counting down the seconds before we were live on air, and I was getting my makeup, my last looks, and Jack was sitting with the reporter on the other side of the camera. As we were counting down with just 3 seconds, she leaned over to Jack and said, "Could you tell Marlee that my dog is deaf, just like her?" And suddenly I was live on television, and I'm thinking, what does she want me to do? Does she want to throw me a bone? Does she want me to say woof? I don't know. Okay. And this thing doesn't only happen in Hollywood. It happened to me a couple of times. I don't know about you, to those people who are deaf, but I'm on a plane, ready for the plane to take off. I'm set, my seatbelt is on, and Jack and I are signing to each other. The flight attendant comes over, sees me signing, waves, gives me a menu. As soon as she sees me signing, she grabs the menu out of my hand, goes to the galley, and returns back with a new menu in Braille. Actually, they have to think about it for a moment, too. And she's like, "Yes, so what's wrong? Like, don't you need the Braille?" And I'm like, "No, I'm deaf, not blind." And then she realizes it, and then I never see her for the rest of the flight. I use these stories not to trivialize the barriers facing people like myself, because every day there is still discrimination against differently abled people and people who are deaf. And whether being in front of the camera, out and about being a mom, or working on behalf of some of my favorite charities, my message has always been the same, and one that I got from my parents, that no matter what abilities we possess, all of us not only deserve respect, we deserve to be heard. In my book, I chronicle that it wasn't always easy, that sometimes I was made fun of out there, and sometimes I fell. But it was all a part of growing up. Just because I was deaf, my parents felt that I should not live a sheltered life. Far from it. They believed that it was important for me to embrace life, both the good and the bad. So, even though I danced in front of 25 million people each week on Dancing with the Stars, or stood my ground as strong characters who just happened to be deaf on shows like The L Word and on The West Wing, I still have days when I feel like I'm going out that front door of my parents' house for the first time to prove that I can do anything except hear. And oftentimes, I still find myself explaining that yes, I do drive a car, and yes, I can have children, and yes, I am a working actress. Well, fortunately, with your commitment here today to creating greater accessibility, you at Google have demonstrated that you get it. You get it. Because what you're doing here today with YouTube and automatic captioning is nothing short of extraordinary. I cannot tell you how much I've come to rely on the internet for my communication needs. And many others out there, many millions of others out there. I'm sure you've probably heard of the irony of the invention of the telephone, that when Alexander Graham Bell, who had a deaf wife and a deaf mother, wanted to find a way to help them communicate, he thought of the telephone as a tool that would help them. But little did he realize that the telephone would be one of the greatest barriers when it came to communication between the deaf and the hearing world. Right there. 20 years ago, I lobbied and I succeeded in getting the film which inspired me to be an actress, The Wizard of Oz, to be closed captioned for the first time. Because captioning was crucial in bringing the words that you all take for granted to my world. In the following year, in 1990, I took it one step further and I went to Capitol Hill to lobby on behalf of the legislation that all televisions 13 inches or larger should be equipped with closed captioning technology. Like the critics who doubted my ability to be an actor because in their eyes my deafness put me on a level below my peers, TV manufacturers and programmers thought that millions of Americans who were deaf or hard of hearing didn't deserve equal access through closed captioning. But with the hard work and determination, we were successful in getting the Decoder Act bill passed 6 years later, and legislation was passed that required that all broadcast television be 100% closed captioned. But, like the irony of the invention of the telephone, the internet eventually became a bigger barrier than one could ever imagine when it came to closed captioning content on broadband. Here's a good example. Just last October, The Wizard of Oz celebrated a wonderful milestone, the 75th anniversary of its initial release. And for the first time in broadcast history, it was going to be streamed live to every single American who had access to a computer for free. So, free, absolutely free. So I was eager to share the film with my children, particularly my then 5-year-old daughter, in whose eyes I saw the same sense of wonderment and excitement that I had when I was 7 watching the film for the first time about the young girl with the ruby slippers who dreamt of someplace over the rainbow. But when I opened up my laptop and hit the play button, I was horrified to find that the film that I had lobbied to get closed captioned 20 years earlier was shown without captions. I was told that the technology was not out there and that I had to be patient and to wait. Well, as I said, I like to make noise. So, I tweeted like crazy to the thousands of followers that I had on Twitter, and I made sure that my friends like Ashton Kutcher and Alyssa Milano knew what was going on, and what was going on with closed captioning on the internet, and I encouraged them to retweet, and they did. Then I found out there was actually no problem with the technology, and in fact, the technology is out there to stream content with closed captions. When it came down to the same issue, a lack of understanding, it was a lack of understanding, and that a large percentage of manufacturers said that you need to provide access for the millions of viewers who are deaf or hard of hearing. So, by providing closed caption, they can get access. More importantly, they failed to understand that original programming had captions, but that the internet had to have the captions as well. Eventually, the frustration increased so much because I had to fight to do what I did 20 years ago all over again. The ultimate irony came during the unveiling of the celebration of Helen Keller's life. There was a statue being unveiled in the Capitol Rotunda, and it was streamed live without captions. Here we're celebrating and honoring a woman who fought for equality and accessibility over 100 years ago, and who I looked up to as a role model, and I wasn't even able to share the celebration of her life. It was simply unacceptable. Unacceptable. But you, at Google, you changed all that. Just as you did when you pioneered the search engine, you are helping to ensure the commitment and standards and legislation that we worked for accessing broadcast TV are continuing here with your efforts in getting hundreds and thousands of videos on YouTube broadcast with closed captions. So, today, I am proud to premiere the pilot episode of a show that I produced, which I hope will become a series, either on network or web. It's called My Deaf Family. And the show chronicles a family from right here in the San Francisco Bay Area that is made up of both deaf and hearing family members. It's told from the perspective of 15-year-old Jared Furl, who is hearing. Jared's parents are deaf, and they work nearby here at the California School for the Deaf in Fremont. Jared also has 3 siblings, 2 of whom are deaf, and 1 who is hearing. I like to think of it as a deaf version of Little People, Big World. And I even pitched it to TLC in the hopes of creating the first reality show of its kind ever, showing what life is like for millions of Americans who are deaf and hard of hearing. Unfortunately, TLC seemed more interested in doing a show about killing moose with Sarah Palin. So, fine. That's okay. That's all right. If TLC won't have me, I figured I'll do it my words, and using Miss Palin's words, I'm going to go rogue and broadcast it on YouTube, where I can call the shots, and where I can be guaranteed that the show will be broadcast with captions. Thank you, Google, for making this happen. I also wanted to say that though I may be deaf, silence is the last thing the world will ever hear from me. And that the real handicap of deafness does not lie in the ear, it lies in the mind. Thank you for your commitment to breaking through the barriers and providing access to YouTube through automatic captioning. Through your example, you're helping to open the minds of those who choose to handicap millions of people like myself who are deaf or hard of hearing, and who don't provide closed caption content through broadband. Your efforts today will guarantee the hard-fought victory we won so many years ago can move forward into the 21st century. So, without any delay, please enjoy the premiere of My Deaf Family on YouTube. But before I say this, hold on one second. I want to introduce to you one of the stars of My Deaf Family, of this program. Brigetta Bourne Furl is here with us today. Could you please stand up? Thank you for coming out, taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. So, I want to thank the children and the students from the California School for the Deaf who were with us today, who came out today with us. So, just 2 things. Enjoy the show, and I'm going to think about where to find my glasses so I can read some more. Okay. Let's go.
My name is Jared, I'm 15, and I have a family of 6. My dad's name is Leslie. My mom's name is Brigetta. I have a younger brother, his name is Gideon. I have a little sister named Sabrina. My youngest brother is Elijah. And this is My Deaf Family.
So, there you go. There you go. This was something that we had been hoping for a long time, and now we have the opportunity to put it there on YouTube, and we hope that millions of people worldwide will have the chance to see this. And this makes it even bigger than just the pilot. And thank you, Brigetta. Thank you, Brigetta, for letting us come into your home, for letting us into your home. And this was shot just in 1.5 days. That's all we had, just 1.5 days to shoot. And, you know, it's almost unheard of in the reality programming business to make a pilot that only covers 1.5 days of a family's life. But I'm very proud of it, and I hope that you all enjoyed it. And I think that we also might be having some, do I need to give you the microphone? Do we have question and answers, or what?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask a few questions, and then I'd really like to open it up to the audience, and I'll